Hey everyone. So on today's talk, we've got an exclusive chat with TransPerfect. This company is honestly pretty amazing. They were founded back in 1992 out of an NYU dorm room, and they've managed to grow all the way into one of the world's largest providers of language and technology solutions. So, I mean, they've expanded globally since, they've integrated AI into their offerings, and frankly, they've got offices in over 100 cities now. So, from the TransPerfect team, I'm joined by Joe Campbell, SVP of Tech Ops, and we've got Justin Vasquez from the product leadership side. So, hey guys,
Hey, Sam.
how's it going?
Hey there.
Doing well. Excited to get into it.
Fantastic. Listen, you guys have got a whole new product that I covered last week as part of our, actually not last week, my bad, a few weeks ago as part of some of the AI product reports exclusive, frankly, around the GlobalLink Live product. You guys have got a bunch of new things happening, and I'm really excited to, get to know you guys a little bit more as well. So we're going to open off kind of our chat with a few easy questions, mostly around like, what was kind of your most rewarding experiences with the business so far? And we'll kind of slowly introduce the rest of the cool products that's out and about, and a bunch of other. We'll get to know you guys a bit more.
Sounds great.
Fantastic. So do tell, when it comes down to when it comes down to your most rewarding experience with the business so far, tech ops is a pretty wide range for a title. What did you like? What kind of pies do you have your fingers in at this point?
Right. The Tech Ops team started out as just called Special Projects, and we sort of evolved that title over time, or evolved the name of the department over time to focus much more specifically on technology and on a lot of actually like technical operations, like the main login authentication tool for TransPerfect comes from our team. We have the number of these other different components that we extracted out because the first project we worked on, uh,
Hmm.
our team was sort of known for focusing on user experience, and so we created this very widely used portal tool that was used to submit translation work that became the most used tool in the company.
Oh, that's awesome.
And at one point, we decided it made a lot more sense to extract the main microservices out of this into these separate standalone services that could be used throughout the company. And at that point, Tech Ops became a much more logical name where it was like, okay, we're providing these sort of technical operations throughout all the different technology products, but all starting from this base of what we were doing again, with a user experience driven product.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Justin, yourself, like what, you're one of the product leaders. Like, how's the ride been, and like what's been one of the things that really stands out to you?
I mean, for me, I would say most recently we had our Global Link Next conference in New York City a couple of weeks ago. And during that conference, we had a booth and we had a presence for this product that we're going to talk about some more today called Global Link Live. And so it was just quite an amazing experience to be there with clients, demoing it, showcasing it, showing them the awesome new features that we're bringing to life for them, and also just getting their feedback in person live and hearing clients say, oh wow, like we could really utilize this, or hey, I have a use case that this would be great for. So hearing those comments and just interacting with clients and kind of just showing the world what we're bringing to life, it was, I mean, it couldn't have been better as a product person. So
Wonderful. Yeah, honestly, that's one of those things from a product perspective that just really, still to this day, I can't get enough of, is really being able to just get out there in the field and just start, shaking hands, getting to see how people are interacting, looking at kind of that almost that like the tacit experience that people are living, one to one with your products. That's one of those things that really I don't know, it's a really humbling, it's a really rewarding experience. So I feel you on that one. And honestly, this one goes out to both of you. Do you have a favorite product out of the suite so far? You're not allowed to say the same one. The both of you can't say the
Oh,
same one, so get creative.
we were gonna say. I mean, I know what I think is my favorite product, and I'm pretty sure it's Justin's because he was originally started working out on it. Um, Well, I'll tee up Justin talking about his favorite product, which is GlobalLink TV. It's something that we just launched recently. We just launched client-facing recently, but it came out of like sort of the depths of COVID, in which people have been creating all this video content because of and needed to share it in all these different ways. And so our team internally and throughout the company, we're creating this great video content that they're sharing in like YouTube and Vimeo and all over the place. And we realized we could create a sort of Netflix for corporate, in which we could give a tool that we could use to share our content in this really easy to use platform. Now that I've just taken all of that, Justin, do you want to explain if that is your favorite product indeed? Do you want to go on and explain more why?
Well, sure. I mean, what I appreciated a lot about GLTV is that it came from, I would say, like when we first started talking about this as a concept about 2.5, 3 years ago, it came from a heart of innovation around, hey, what new thing can we do as a company and work as a bootstrap startup team to try to get this thing off the ground and talk to our customers and talk to people internally, figure out the right experience that we're trying to build, but also make sure that we're building it in a way in which we can set ourselves up for rapid iteration, rapid growth, and so it it does hold a special place in my heart since I was in the early grounds with the team working on that one. So it's great to see the form that it's taken now, and it's great because GL Live and especially the AI component to this and the team that's working on it is taking on that same spirit of innovation and trying to really like bring something new to our customers and bring this awesome experience to them and be able to iterate quickly. So it carries that same spirit. So of course, I'll say my second favorite, but soon to be, number one favorite will be GL Live.
Oh, fantastic. Well, speaking of GL Live, that's kind of a huge part of, why we're here today. So I want to get into that as well. Like, you guys recently launched it. I saw the press release. I talked about it because newsletter things. Um, I'm like, I am so excited. Like, you guys got me keys to start kicking the tires on it. That's been amazing so far. And that's one of those things to me. Like, I want to talk about the product. I want to talk about also the market you're seeing a little bit around the product, because when I think about AI translation, like from a business to consumer side, it's really easy to think, well, Google Translate kind of has it. And then you start to realize that, wait a minute, in a lot of other contexts, that does not fly. And so, do you want to kind of share a little bit more about, what changes you're seeing in the larger translation business now that AI is like kind of the name of the game on that side? Now that you're looking at kind of an interface between humans, machine, and a little bit more, like there's definitely paradigms that are kind of needed to address a lot of those issues, and kind of how you're navigating all of that is something that's really fascinating to me. So I'd love to hear a bit more about how you split the difference between AI, like an AI first paradigm versus a people first paradigm, or how you play the game between those two. And also after that, I'll start kind of picking a little bit your brain on probably things around markets.
Well, one thing I would say is from the TransPerfect perspective and from the GlobalLink perspective, we have been focused on AI, and AI sort of had a significant impact on us starting in 2010, right? This neural machine translation was really like, that is, the hype cycle for that really peaked around 2010, and it was already impacting us before that. So it's one of the things that was actually lucky for us as an organization at this moment, because we had already dealt with a lot very similar questions to what now a much broader range of companies are dealing with now. And we already have an internal playbook for how to deal with that. And that's been really exciting, just to sort of bring that to our clients who are talking to us and who are like confused and dealing with this for the first time. And here we're like, oh, we had this before. And one of the things that actually, one of the exciting elements of this is, for us, we actually surfed sort of that first AI wave, the neural machine translation wave, from like a top 5 language service provider in the world to being number 1, right? So given that experience, it really does give us this broad range. And I'm trying to like unpack, because you had like a lot of different questions and where to
But
go next.
one of the
Right?
big
All
ones
right.
with this
Yes.
was around kind of that AI versus human in how you
Right.
deliver
Yes.
those services, right? Like
Yeah.
TransPerfect as a whole, you guys have a suite of
Yeah.
products, you guys have
Hmm.
services.
Hmm.
There's a
Yep.
lot in terms of range
Yep.
here. And so where do you kind of slice, hey, I think this problem
Right.
should be best solved AI first, or
Mm.
should we look at a hybrid approach, or should we look at a human first approach? And so that's kind of the core of
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
big one right now.
Okay. One of the things right there is we're often driven by, like, we have our own expectations and our own guidelines, but like in the end, we're
Mm,
driven by the client requirements, which really are varied and different. Um, and as a platform, when you're working with TransPerfect and with GlobalLink, you can sort of turn the dial up or turn the dial down depending upon whatever the needs are in this moment. Because there are solutions in which that are all AI, and there's a lot of use cases for those. A lot of times, if there's something that you need something instant, like that's a good example of when you often need something to be just AI. Um, as opposed to if you need something that passes regulatory muster, you often need, if AI can be part of the process, but you generally need an expert review or an expert involved in some capacity. There's also this extra element of, like, I want to say, artisanal or sort of traditional element in which, when you are, like, if you when you have your brand that is being articulated out in the market, you really want to make sure that you have someone who is this like, who is really like an artist in a real way, who is
mm,
involved in helping to shape that, an artist who understands your brand. And again, AI
yeah.
can power that and can make that go faster, and there's a lot of different ways to use it as a tool. But in the end, like, when your brand is one of your most valuable things, you need to make sure you're in safe hands, and you have a process in which it's a person and it's AI going back and forth.
Yeah,
And really,
because then there's
this.
there's kind of
Yeah.
that human cachet that
Yeah.
can't be ignored around how, I'm thinking idioms for the most part. Like some idioms
Mm,
translate directly, but the impact really doesn't hit the same way. So
sure.
from a language perspective, I
Mm,
definitely see that it makes a lot more sense to play all across the spectrum,
right.
definitely on that one. That's really interesting. And
Yeah.
so I promised you I'd jump into the market a little bit, and I'm obviously trying to wrap my head around this because I don't know quite a lot about your competitors, and I'm not going to
Mm,
try and ask you about your competitors, but instead I'm going to say, like, in the market at large, have you guys been seeing an uptick in demand, kind of a stabilization, like kind of business as usual for the last I'd say probably the last about 5-ish years. Like once everybody went indoors, the
mm.
world both closed and opened up a lot at the same time. And so I'm curious to know, was something like that one of those kind of catalytic events that led to a huge push in terms of demand? Or what kind of tell me a bit more about that story as well?
Well, I mean, there's that impact is like, TransPerfect is in so many different fields, so it's really actually
Hmm.
hard. But there's a lot of different stories to tell. Like, one particular thing that happened in the interpretation world um, is that the primary thing we used to do is we would staff an interpreter who would go on site, either a two-person conversation or at a conference or whichever other context. And obviously with the lockdowns, et cetera, like that became not the ideal way to do this, right? Slash not possible. And so there was a lot of effort in which we began to work with a company called The Speech to do a lot of to facilitate a lot of these remote interactions. The Speech was then acquired by TransPerfect just earlier this year and incorporated into our GlobalLink Live suite of products. So
Excellent.
that's sort of been where this is moved towards, right? And that was a pretty big impact, because now we see, when the difference in, there's an extra element you have when you're bringing someone on site, where there's this extra value you get
Mhm.
from that. But at the same time, you also then, we become a staffing agency who is booking hotels, and like, we're booking, like, we are doing all of these extra elements that are part of it, that involve a lot of project management. And when we're doing this remotely, it's a different level of what we're doing, right? And then
Sure.
obviously when you move towards AI being part of that, it brings it to another level as well. And we think there's a very strong place for all of these different components. Like, in person is something that we support, even in our translation world. There are some cases in which our clients will come to us and say, we need to have people in a clean room with air gap computers who are translating these documents, and it needs to be, utterly secure.
Absolutely.
And we support that. We do that. And then also there's some that are saying, I just need to get I just need the gist of it. I just need to have some rough idea. And maybe I'll want something after that. And we support that too. So again, the path really does go from one to the other, and supporting that range is really what we've always focused on.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big scope of focus. And at least bringing us back down to the scope of focus for today, let's get hyped. I mean, listen, you've got GlobalLink Live that just launched. Let's hear about it. Let's talk about a little bit of that product vision around, what you were hoping to accomplish out of it. Let's talk about that amazing video that, I mean, I shared it a couple weeks back on the newsletter, but yeah, you were talking pretty much conversationally with someone that was, an ocean apart, linguistically speaking. So let's hear about the vision. I want to see where kind of the inception of that kind of came from, and then we'll take it from there.
I guess I'll start, and Justin, just jump in as we're going. The project actually started in a hackathon. There was a hackathon in which, like, the engineers they had been in a session which I had organized on how to incorporate AI into our products, into our suite, something that we had already done. And when I say AI, actually in this case, I mean more specifically, it was sort of LLMs and sort of like the new exciting stuff.
The new wave, yeah.
And so they had a hackathon with this group, which was very focused on essentially community interpreting, and this very hands-on, very in-person type of area. So the team really had when they finished their product, or the POC from the hackathon, they actually asked the question, like, do you think anyone is interested in something like this? Is this interesting to anyone? Like, afterwards, they explained it to the company, and it was like, no, this is real interesting. This is amazing, right? And I think the vision where we're headed, super big picture, is like the Star Trek Universal Translator. It is like just the effortless ability to communicate. Now the gap there is wide. I don't even know how people in Star Trek are able to hear the voices that they're hearing. Like, there's there's something that is a little bit too perfect in how that works, at least given today's technology. But we are getting closer and closer to the point in which it can become real to actually have that level of communication. And the fact that you can just sort of go back and forth without a pause and just pick up who's talking and which language and just go back and forth is a step change, and the speed with which it does it. And that is the part that I think makes this incredibly exciting. And that is what when we show this product to people, every time I've done it, they've been like, their eyes just light up. It's like, wow, it just works this way. And I had tested the Google Translate app years ago, and I've sort of checked in on that for a long time, and for the other different applications, and they've been doing this to some degree for a very long time. But there are these different the things that have changed have been the speed, which the technology, as it just continues to evolve, is getting there. And the thing that I think we've added that's different is this element of a hands-free user experience, in which you can really just go back and forth in what we're doing. And so that to me has been the really exciting part, and that's what causes people, I think, to light up a little bit more when they see, this it just works, that element, right? It's like when when children who had never seen a computer before were handed an iPad and they knew how to navigate on it, right? It's like this element of, it just does what I thought. It
just works. Exactly. It just works.
I've done theater, but improvisation, no.
You've done theater?
Has fet teatre.
Sí, i era bona, I em feia de petita.
Yes, it was good. And I was a kid.
Okay, I did theater as a kid too.
D'acord, vaig fer teatre com a cuina.
De fet, he fet els pastorets.
In fact, I've done the shepherds. One. And.
The shepherds? What are the shepherds?
Els pastors són els pastors. Jugar.
Els pastors és
The
Jesus.
shepherds are with Jesus.
Yeah, and I would actually add, so just adding to what Joe mentioned. So I know Joe mentioned the, 10x, maybe 50x in terms of product vision of having the Star Trek universal translator. We know that we're a ways away, but obviously we want to get there as much as possible. But then to talk about the what we see as the 2x, 3x version in the next year or so, there is an incredible amount of potential that we're trying to figure out and unlock with our clients, because AI interpretation now is really like opening the door to use cases that were underserved or wouldn't have existed without having a tool like this that is on demand, that is 24/7, that can
Yeah.
support over 90 languages, and that you can use on your mobile phone when you need it. Right. So it's
Yes.
kind of interesting as we speak to clients about all of these interesting new use cases, and even ones that we go out ourselves and try to figure out and reach out to clients like, hey, like, would you use it in this case? And clients are like, oh yeah, like that's actually a big problem that we have. Like, great that you identified that. So it's kind of interesting, like unlocking all of these different use cases where we see
Hmm.
our live AI being able to fit in. So at least from a kind of 2x, 3x vision perspective over the next between like now and then 2025, it's really trying to unlock those use cases and that potential, and also making sure that we are able to build the right experience that can support all of these very unique and awesome use cases that we're seeing.
So you're kind of at the state now where the immediate next step is just as many notches as possible on the belt as you can when it comes down to all the like. I mean, you this has kind of opened up the floodgates in terms of use
Yeah.
cases. So now it's a question of how do we target these? How do we like best serve them? And how do we maintain the level of user experience to the level of quality that we're looking for? So that's awesome. That's absolutely like I'm kind of nerding out for a second here, but I listen. I grew up with the Next Generation. That was a big one for me. So
Yeah.
the Star Trek bit really resonated. All right.
Yeah.
Um,
Just before that video that you had shared before, actually, when the kickoff to that meeting, I actually showed a bunch of clips from Star Trek where the interpreter, where the interpretation went wrong, or the universal translator went wrong, because that's the only times at which they actually show it. It's just, it's there. It's just always there in the background. But then when it goes wrong, suddenly you begin to notice this layer. And that idea of providing this like operating system for language, like I think that's what that is where we are moving, and that's where a lot of what we already have is already providing for global companies. So
Yeah,
that's
and I think the only thing that we're missing with our live AI is Klingon. So eventually we'll start supporting that at some point. Just give us
Hey,
time.
once you start supporting fantasy languages, I feel like you've peaked as a technology. So you've got hands free. I mean, listen, I know in our audience we got a lot of tech enthusiasts, we got a lot of product enthusiasts. So you've got a bunch when it comes down to hands free tech. I just played the same demo as before. I'm gonna edit that in there for you. But when it comes down to some of the uglier sides of it all, obviously the technical guys love getting into that, and I'm one of them for sure. Like when it comes to that reliability, how do you kind of toe the line between speed, accuracy, and all of that? And like on the same along the same lines as this reliability conversation is like, what's your philosophy around error handling or weird language edge cases?
I would start out saying one of the things that's really important with the way in which we're doing this is to try to make sure we have as much, like our focus right now is on high context situations. We think that's where the tool actually works best. So if we are, again, I can see someone's face as they're talking, and it's doing the translation interpretation. That provides this extra layer of mutual understanding, which sort of glosses that over. So we realize again, it's not AI taking over; it's AI just really facilitating this human connection. The other thing that we've put a lot of thought into are the guardrails, right? So the app is when you're using AI in the application by default, and the use cases we are pursuing the most or the most confident are the ones where we have these guardrails in place. And what do I mean by guardrails? I mean just as one example, we are not currently using something like ChatGPT 4.0 that has like voice to voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not using that today because that sort of goes into a black box. You don't know exactly what's going to come out, and there isn't auditability and traceability as to what's going on behind the scenes. So what we are doing now is we are working on speech to text, text to speech, and we give that feedback so that users can see exactly what the speech to text is. Then they see the translation, and then that is read out loud. Now, there's a lot of contexts in which we want to go voice straight to voice and not have that, and actually it works great there. But the more, when we have at least someone who's able to see that, those guardrails being in place means that for auditability, for traceability, and for sort of mutual understanding between the two people, they're working not just off of the conversation, we're adding this extra context to it. And that's a lot on. And in terms of some of the rest of it, like the other element, I guess we can use the word context again, but in a different element, something closer to maybe like training, right? Is that we are able to, and this is something that isn't available generally, but we are able to, even though we're not using it a lot, I'm going to use the word prompt, right? We're able to sort of prompt and train the engine to respect certain key terms, and this is something that TransPerfect and GlobalLink have done throughout our history. Is like, we know, clients used to send us a glossary, on a folded piece of paper in an envelope. Now we've got, systems that actually track this, and we can pull those in. So that way we can say, okay, actually, no, the word GlobalLink is always spelled with a capital G, capital L, right? So now when it's coming in context in the application, same thing, this word is pronounced this way for us. This is the other extra context. This is an earnings call with this person speaking. Like, giving that extra context improves everything significantly in terms of the actual outputs.
Oh, absolutely.
And moving towards,
yeah, and that's one of the things that even in my past time working in kind of natural language processing in that space, like working with domain expertise is usually kind of the biggest hurdle, the biggest headache, and that's still something to this day. Like, there's been a number of breakthroughs, but there's still so much in that frontier that we need to really double down on. And I think data is king, as it always has been when it comes to AI everything.
Quality data.
And data is king. And so having good quality data coming fresh from not just your tech but everyday use, that's awesome. That is critical, and I love to hear it in terms of reliability. We're going to take our foot off the gas a little bit for a second here. I'm really just curious. Do you guys have like a funny story of something that happened on the way, like embarrassing mistakes, something really just completely out of left field that you've seen this product hatch, and you're like, wait a minute?
I get the first one. And Justin, if you continue to think on this, it looks like you're trying to figure out the sanitized version of one. While I was recording a demo actually of this, I don't know, like a few months ago. Someone just like, they were talking, like, oh, you have to kill two birds with one stone, right? And it translated it as like, you need to murder it was just something so ridiculous. It was like murder the owls or something, and it was just like, what? And it was the person who was on the other side of it could speak the other language. You could speak English, so they were just started cracking up immediately, and obviously that ruined the demo. Because the whole demo was that they couldn't understand. But yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
No, there's a lot of little things like that where like even in the video you showed earlier, where they're talking about shepherds, right? It's like the shepherds. Oh, like with Jesus. Oh, that one, the nativity. Like it was a nativity play. Like that context. It's interesting to see how, I guess, that context wasn't available and was sort of missed in that. But again, when there's a back and forth conversation, it becomes clarified, and it becomes like a moment of its own.
And it becomes almost a byproduct of your own work, ends up being the sociological study to kind of build the inference mapping between one culture's way of referring to a specific event, for example, the shepherds, versus what we call here in North America as, oh yeah, okay, it's the nativity scene, like that's what we know it as. And so building some of that translation layer ultimately
Yeah,
in
yeah.
even some of the translation that you're doing
Right,
is
right.
one of those linguistic challenges that you're definitely up against. And I
Yeah.
think that that's something that's going to be a pretty solid a solid second front to fight on, especially if you're going into the context of a lot of business use cases. You're serving a lot of businesses, and so just there, I'm thinking of the sheer volume of kind of transactions and
Sure.
interactions between different businesses across the world. Um, Listen, English is one of the worst for that when it comes to idioms. Hey, we're talking about this thing, and we're like, let's not kill two birds with one stone. Oh, let's not rock the boat too
Right.
much. Oh, we should circle back on this. Like the list of random linguistic
Yeah.
no, Bob's your uncle. That's exactly it. Like the sheer amount of kind of jumping around that we do as we try and communicate what is otherwise a pretty simple concept. It's pretty entertaining. So that gymnastic is definitely its own frontier.
And
Um,
just to geek out, I'm just reminded of Darmok and Jalad at Chaladra? No, I'm missing it a little bit. The Star Trek reference where they have the universal translator, but it doesn't work because the entire civilization speaks in metaphor that it requires you to understand the story. Uh, so like all the words are translated properly, but like no one has any idea what's being communicated because they don't know the stories that are behind it.
yeah,
And it's
that's
like that
exactly it.
extra layer on top. Yeah.
That's exactly it. Um, yeah, I mean, listen, it's been an awesome time. I'm gonna jump right into kind of some of the closing questions because we're pretty much there. You guys have already shared a lot about the exciting plans of more use cases, more kind of domain expertise, more context awareness outside of the words themselves. Like there's I'm going to ask openly, there might be a little bit of video interpretation in there perhaps for some of that nonverbal context,
Sure.
maybe. If you'll allow me to imagine a little bit, hint hint, wink wink. Justin, how many story points do you think that's going to be? And outside of that, though, what I would say is that, like, is there anything else you want the viewers to know about? Like, how can they get in touch with you, or even dig a little deeper on some of what we talked about today?
Well, the best way to dig deeper is to go to the TransPerfect site or the GlobalLink site that's part of TransPerfect. We have a whole GlobalLink Live section that's being actually rebuilt out now, but it's available as it is. And you can find a number of our videos on mine and Justin's favorite product, GlobalLink TV, if you search for that as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. And honestly, that's a wrap for our AI product report chat with the team at TransPerfect. Honestly, a huge thank you guys for kind of your thoughts, your inputs, and sharing some of that expertise with us today. To the listeners, thank you for tuning in and being part of the AI community. If you like this one, obviously be sure to share it with your friends and stay curious. We'll catch you next time.